Hello and welcome in. My name's Christian. I am a holistic health coach, and I focus in on the intuitive side of the coaching, connecting individuals back to their body, being able to adhere and understand the signals and the signs that our body gives us to be able to focus in on what we need to do for our health, to be able to keep us in the most positive state of vibration, feeling good, feeling happy, all that kind of stuff. All right, I wanted to start off with these video series here on YouTube with just my story, my background, how I got to be doing what I do today, and everything that I've kind of been through on my journey and through my experience. All right, so I live in sunny San Diego, California, born and raised here, and through that I gained a lot of time at the beach. I love to surf. I love to be at the beach all the time, swimming, spearfishing, boogie boarding, whatever it may be. I just love being in the water. In fact, I've loved being in the water so much my entire life that I've got what they call swimmer's ear. So I've got really bad bone growth in my ears. It hasn't really caused any negative effects to me. I still hear completely fine and whatnot, but it did impact a couple of different possible opportunities through my journey that were kind of a bummer, but everything has a purpose. So but yeah, through my life, I was at the beach all the time, super grateful for that experience, but then also just really all just into nature. I had parents that loved going to the beach and that loved being out in nature. I had grandparents that lived up in the mountains, so I got to spend a lot of time with them out in that nature. So nature and having nature in my life consistently all the time is very important to me. And then the other things, also I was very fortunate to be able to grow up with parents that were a lot more health focused, especially, at a time like in the 90s and whatnot. So I grew up in the 90s, and I had what my mom was what you would call a health nut, especially back then when all this health stuff, no one really talked about it. And if you did talk about the health stuff, you were deemed as crazy, or at least my mom was to a certain extent. I was a vegetarian until the age of 5. And then I believe it was Thanksgiving, one of my grandparents gave me a piece of ham. And after that, I wanted to have meat. However, though, my point is that I ate very healthy from a very young age. My mom breastfed me. We went to farmers markets and local co-ops and stuff like that to get most of our food growing up. And everything was organic, all natural, locally sourced for the most part. So I was very fortunate to have, my mom more so, that really wanted that type of health and knew about that type of health, and went the lengths that she did to be able to get that for me. And I have a little sister as well, so to get that for her family and everything like that. So again, something that I'm super grateful for. But as I grew up, everything wasn't so good. I had these foundations and I had these things, but even as a kid, I really didn't appreciate what my mom was providing for me, what she was, going through, because it wasn't cheap back then either. And a lot of times it was hard to find these things. Plus, the ridicule and all the different things that people, friends, family, whatever people would say, and treat my mom based off the decisions of health that she would do back then. We're talking 30 years ago. Things were a lot different. So again, very grateful for it, but I didn't appreciate it. I was the one kid going to school in elementary school with things like, a tuna salad or, a chicken salad or sushi and just like these, more healthy things, when all my friends were getting pizza from school and, hot dogs and all these fruit roll-ups and Gushers and Rice Krispie treats. And that's what I really wanted, so it was very hard for me to appreciate the healthy food because I just saw what all the other kids were having. And then I would trade my food or try to trade my food, or I would, ask other kids to try some. And I'd be like, oh my God, that's so good. You're so lucky. I never went to McDonald's as a kid. I never had Lunchables as a kid. None of that stuff. Like I never had that. But I wanted it because everyone else did. And it looked really good because they market it very, very well to make kids want it. That's their market demographic. So they're going to put stuff on there to make kids want it. They're going to put it in the commercials. They're going to do all that stuff to make our kids want it even more. And I wanted it, and my mom didn't give it to me. So I rebelled. I snuck around, got that stuff, where I could and all that. Once I got to the age to go to the local, little gas station or 7-Eleven down the street, I was going down there and buying candy and bubble gum and Doritos chips and sodas and all that kind of stuff, because we did not have that in our home. So that's kind of, I got into a rebellious state early on. Now my dad is he was more of the fitness side of things. Growing up, my dad ran a martial arts studio, so we had a martial arts studio growing up, and we started that when I was about 5 years old. And through that, I trained martial arts with my dad, got to the point of teaching classes. I got all the way up to about a 2nd degree black belt by the age of 12. So I helped out at our studio, did all that, but that's kind of what started the understanding of body mechanics and how to move the body and breath work, and a little bit of working with energy. I trained in a South Korean art called subak-do. It's a lot much like subak or tang sudo and stuff like that, your typical martial arts practices, but this one focuses a lot more on patience and self-control. There's no contact or anything like that until you reach a black belt. And once you reach a black belt, there's very mild and minimal contact. So when you're sparring and different stuff like that, it's more about control rather than, defeating, which I really liked because it instilled a lot more, understanding, and allowed me to be more humble and more patient and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I started from the age of 5 all the way up to about the age of 12. Once I got to be about 12 and I got up to a 2nd degree black belt, I got kind of bored with it. I did a little bit of jiu-jitsu, but didn't stick around. I did that for about a year. At that point, I was focused in on surfing all the time because that's what me and my friends like to do, and that was what was cool, as well as playing music. I play music. I played guitar since I was 12, so that's kind of what started to lead my attention and focus into something else, and learning how to play guitar and playing music and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's the basics of that. But my dad was also a personal trainer too, so that's where kind of my background into fitness kind of began. However, though, when I was about 13, right around that 12 into 13, 14, 15, my parents were not getting along. They were fighting all the time about all kinds of different stuff, and the environment in the household was not good. So that's one area that once I got a guitar, I was kind of able to escape all of the chaos and stuff that was going on in my house. Later on, my parents ended up getting a divorce. My dad ended up selling the martial arts studio to go into a different business venture. That business venture did not work out. We ended up losing our house and pretty much everything right around just before that 2008 financial crisis. We lost everything right around 2005, 2006. But leading up to that, it was a few years of just absolute chaos, and it sucked, those years leading up. And then once all that happened, it sucked even more because now, I was dealing with separated parents, didn't have a home to live in, had to be able to live in a 1-bedroom with just my mom and my sister, and that's where a lot of anger and different things started to arise with both of my parents, mainly my dad at first. I kind of stopped talking to him and everything like that, and stopped having that relationship because I was angry. I was frustrated. And I was also angry and frustrated at my mom too. But, I had a little bit more compassion for my mom, as I was led to believe that most of the situation was all my dad's fault. But as I've gotten older, I understand that there's always it takes two to tango and make these things happen. So, I don't put blame onto one or the other. They both have made mistakes. They're both human. And I'll get into my journey dealing with them as we roll through. But, yeah, I was extremely angry. I was frustrated, and as I talked about the food earlier with me rebelling, I started to rebel even deeper. This is where I started to dive into alcohol and tobacco and drugs and all of that kind of stuff. As I was in high school, I was getting into high school. Started off right around 7th, 8th grade, middle school, and then as I got into high school, oh boy, we started partying. I was also playing music. I played in a band in high school where we started playing parties and stuff like that. And so it was a lot of fun. However, what we were doing was not good. And those things that we were doing turned into full-blown addictions, even to the point where we weren't playing. We were just, as far as me, I became fully addicted to just about everything that you can think of. Pills, weed, coke, meth, all that kind of stuff. The only thing that I did not really get into was heroin. And I'm so thankful that I did not, because I've had multiple friends overdose and die, whether it be from it or situations around it. It sucked. It's been hard to see a lot of young people die from that. And when I was in my time in high school, it was all about the Oxycontin. That's when that whole big deal was going down. Obviously now we have fentanyl, and that's another big thing. And it's really sad how many people are affected to it, how many lives it takes over, and all of that kind of stuff. So, with that, again, I'm grateful I didn't get into that stuff, but what I got into, was still pretty bad. And I got deep into all of that kind of stuff, where I'm hanging out, with different, so-called gangs and just the bad people, and started to think I'm a thug and all this type of stuff. It was not good. And I continued to dive down that lifestyle until one day I got checked pretty darn hard. The universe came through and tried to wake me up and gave me my last chance to get out. Because when you're in a lifestyle like that, there's only two things that are going to happen. You're either going to die or you're going to end up in jail for the rest of your life. So one day the universe came and hit me upside the head with a 2x4. I was woken up 4 o'clock in the morning to an armed robbery and home invasion, where woken up, guy in a ski mask and guns trying to come in and take whatever I had. All right, waking up in my underwear in my bed, and long story short, basically like your worst nightmare happening. Went through that whole situation, ended up defending myself through that situation, which led to a lot of other things. The other guy ended up passing away down the street from my house. So that led to a whole slew of things, with cops ended up surrounding my house, had to go get taken down. The whole experience with all of that was extremely traumatic, and that's now imposed a whole new thing in my life. From that situation, I got PTSD, where after I was able to get through that situation and everything like that, realized I needed to change my life and wanted to change my life and get away from all of the addictions that I was dealing with and the people that I was dealing with and truly change. I had what they called PTSD, where I'm waking up at 4 a.m, super paranoid, looking out my windows, making sure my doors are locked, thinking people are in my house, to having, full-on personality changes and just freaking out, anxiety, paranoia, all of that kind of stuff. And it got so bad to the point that, my mom specifically was like, dude, like, you need help. So I had to go and I seeked out therapy. Well, my family helped me, and came across what they call EMDR therapy. And with that, I spent about 2 years in this therapy, and it was amazing. It was truly life-changing. It truly helped me out in a big way to be able to work through all of my traumatic experiences, come to terms with them, and be able to move forward from them. So if there is anyone else out there that's viewing this that you deal with PTSD, look up EMDR therapy. There's a lot more people that are doing it now. Again, this was about a little over 10 years ago when I went through this. But yeah, EMDR therapy, it's like hypnosis therapy, but the purpose is they take you back into these traumatic situations, and you've got to be able to be ready to deal with these situations as well, because you have to deal with those past traumas in order to be able to move forward. Otherwise, they're going to continue to come back and mess with you in multiple different ways. Everyone's experience in dealing with traumas is going to be different. So the way that I was affected is going to be different possibly than the way that you are. Sure, there are some similarities, but it's just important to know that everyone deals with things differently. So, one person's trauma is not nor better or worse than another person's trauma, again, because we all experience differently. But for me, it helped me greatly. I wouldn't be able to be where I'm at today if I did not go through that therapy. So check it out, EMDR therapy, if you're dealing with PTSD. But from there, I needed to be able to figure something for me to do that was going to support me financially, but also something that I wanted to do. I had to get away from music because at that point, like, my whole goal and dream was to be able to become a rock star. But that was only supporting my bad habits and the bad lifestyle that I was living. So I had to be able to take a break from music. And I was thinking, I ended up enlisting into the Coast Guards and Border Patrol. Reasons is because, obviously a lot of my friends that I had lost were doing drugs, mainly heroin and stuff that was coming where I thought was coming over the border. The person that tried to rob me and broke into my home was also on that stuff and dealing with that stuff. So I just saw a big issue with what I thought drugs coming over the border. So I wanted to be able to try to do something to help that out. So I went into, the Coast Guards and Border Patrol with a intention of being some type of drug interdictor. But I also, with the Coast Guards, wanted to be a rescue swimmer too, because I love being in the ocean. Which comes to my story earlier about my swimmer's ear, my bone growth. I did fantastic through my testing, through MEPS and everything, and to the point where I could do whatever I wanted. Those two things were completely an open option for me to be able to pursue. However, though, there was one of the head doctors at MEPS that already didn't really like me because my tattoos, and I did not have nearly as many tattoos as I do now, but didn't like me then. And when it came to them checking my ears, they were like, "Oh my God, this is the worst, case of this swimmer's ear that we've ever seen. No, we're not going to be able to accept you until you go and get this taken care of." And the operation to get rid of swimmer's ear is they have to cut the ear open and go in there with a Dremel and Dremel the bone out of your ear. Not something I'm looking to try to go do, and usually it's going to come back, especially, if you are someone that's in the ocean when it's cold. That's why this happens, is because basically your body is trying to protect your eardrum from being in colder weather, stormy weather. Growing up at the beach, I was in the water, rain or shine. So whether it was stormy outside or what, storms made the surf really good. So I was out there no matter what, surfing as much as I could. And that's what I got from it. So my whole point was hello, that I would like to be a rescue swimmer. Doesn't this overqualify me to show you that the experience that I have in the ocean is fine? But no, it's the liability that they don't want to have to cover this from me coming into it already with this. So I get it, as frustrating as it was, because I didn't get accepted to that. I didn't end up getting accepted to the Border Patrol. I was like, well, then what the fuck do I do now? I became extremely depressed because those were my two options of changing my life. That was going to get me out of this city, be able to keep, me focused and in a good environment. I know, for the most part, what I thought is that most of the people that are working, for these government agencies and stuff like that, they're going to be pretty good people. They're going to be focused, they're going to be focused on moving forward in life and being successful and all this stuff. Plus it came with great benefits. They were going to take care of me. However, though, the universe had different path for me. And so, I had to be able to roll through that time of my life. So, and it was really hard because I put all my eggs into those baskets, and for it to just be a giant letdown was really hard. So I had to then rethink about what I was going to do, and that's where, I started getting into fitness and whatnot, because as I was going through that process, that process got me sober. It I had to get away from everyone that I was hanging out with and everything like that, because they were all still doing bad things. And unless I wanted to go to jail or end up dead, then sure, I could continue to hang out with them, but that's not what I wanted. I wanted to change, and I wasn't happy with the life that I was living either. So I really wanted to change. I did not want to go back. So I had to really think about how I was going to be able to move forward. And so at this point in my life, my dad had opened up a new business. My dad had gotten remarried at this point, opened up a new business, and was working with Orange Theory Fitness, if you're familiar with Orange Theory Fitness. And, at this point, I started talking to my dad again, because I didn't talk to my dad through the time that my parents got separated and all that. He ended up moving to a different city. And then I found out that he, had a new girlfriend and was getting remarried, and I just got more and more angry. But at this point in my life, it was a very crazy experience where I thought, I could have been dead, or I could have been going to jail for the rest of my life, or whatever it may be. So I started rethinking about my relationships and whatnot, and realized that, I do have a dad. Even though he's made some shitty decisions and we haven't seen eye to eye on things, and we argue and fight a lot, I still have a dad. So I would like to be able to make the most out of a relationship that I can have with my dad. You know what I mean? I know a lot of people that don't have their dads here anymore, or never had a dad. So I'm gonna try to be able to make what I can out of this. And so, I reached out to him, and at this point I had been going through therapy. I'd been getting my therapy in, obviously, like I had mentioned, my EMDR therapy. And once we worked through that first traumatic experience of, being a victim of a home invasion and that whole deal, we moved into my parents, and we started to work on the traumas, that pertain to my parents. And so I was able to get to these points, like I had mentioned, of how I felt about my dad, and being able to just want to be able to have some sort of relationship where I felt safe and in control, so that I couldn't get hurt by him anymore and stuff like that, to be able to have, and through this therapy, it really helped me set up those boundaries and be able to look at a positive relationship that I could have with my dad, but set up boundaries that protect me. And so, I started diving into that and feeling that out. And through that, I ended up, saying, hey, is there any opportunity that you'd be able to give me a job at all? And he was like, yeah, but, don't expect any treatment or anything high up. Like, you're going to start off, on the ground level. So I started off selling gym memberships to a studio that was under construction. I was sitting outside under a tent trying to sell gym memberships to a gym that wasn't even open yet. It was a challenge. But I'd had other sales jobs before that. I've been a manager at CVS. I've worked for a health insurance firm. I did pool service and repairs. So I've done a lot. This wasn't my first rodeo. I've been actually pretty much working my entire life. Something I didn't say about my childhood, a couple things about my childhood, is I was in the entertainment business. So I was a model and an actor. I worked for every single business as far as fashion that you can think of, from Ralph Lauren to Guess to Tommy Hilfiger to Quicksilver, Billabong to Land's End to, you pretty much name it. I worked for them. Came out in their catalogs, was up in their stores. I was on a billboard for Guess in LA on La Cienega with Paris Hilton. I did a lot of stuff. I was in Target commercials. I was in Vaughn's commercials. I was in all that. So I did that as a kid. I made a lot of money. However, through my parents' bad decisions and everything, when my parents lost everything, they also lost all my money. They took all my money to be able to try to take them out of the hole. So there was that also influenced a lot of anger and resentment and stuff. I had a little bit that was put into what they call a Coogan account, where I got when I was 18, but there wasn't really much left in there. However, though, like I had mentioned, I played music and everything like that. So they did allow me to buy all of my music equipment when, I was doing that. So I bought myself a few, guitars. I probably spent like $10,000 on music equipment. However, I was getting paid $10,000 a day from someone like Target for their commercial, where I'd worked 3 days. So I made a lot of money. However, my parents managed that, and they didn't know how to manage money because they lost everything, like I had mentioned earlier. The other thing that I want to mention before I start diving into my journey with Orange Theory and my fitness journey, is that, as a kid, I went to a private Christian school. And this kind of goes into my spiritual sides of things and what my beliefs are and how I look at life. But everyone has their own beliefs and look at life. Like, mine does not have to be yours. In fact, I want you to have your own. You may resonate with some of the things that I speak about, but again, like, we're all unique individuals, and that's what makes us awesome. So always stay true to you. But, through my experience with my, going to school, the private Christian school, especially when my parents were going through this, separation and all this type of stuff, it was very challenging for me, because the school that I went to, all the friends that I had, all the way from like kindergarten, all the way up until this point, it was like 5th, 6th grade when things started getting messy with my parents and whatnot. My friends were not allowed to hang out with me anymore. I started becoming the black sheep at the school. And everyone was talking about my home life and not talking about it in a supportive way. They all looked at me in a negative way and looked at my family in a negative way. My friends were not allowed to come over to my house anymore, nor was I able to go to their house anymore. Really, they didn't want their family having anything to do with me or my family because my parents were getting a divorce and now they are sinners. It's basically what pretty much happened. So I was judged and I was shunned as a child. And especially, from people that talk about trying to be Christ-like and all this. So I got a very bad taste in my mouth, right around a very challenging time in life, right around, that the ages of 11 to 13 years old. And so I became even more angry. And that's what got me into rock and roll and Metallica and stuff, because I felt like I connected with that type of music because I was angry and rebellious and fuck everyone, you know what I mean? And so, with that, it was very challenging because everything that I was taught at this school about Jesus and all this type of stuff, I was not seeing or feeling from anyone at all. And these are all adults. And here's a child that is already dealing with a fucked up home life and everything. And now you're going to make everything else in his world even worse. And so, like I said, it made me very angry. And I didn't understand it because the one thing that I got from going to that school is, when I was in kindergarten, my kindergarten teacher, then I'll ask, would you like to accept Jesus into your heart? You want to say a prayer with me and I'll guide you through it and all that kind of stuff, which is great. There's no harm in it, to a certain extent. But, I did that. I said that prayer. I asked Jesus to come into my heart. And then I was given a bracelet. And this bracelet said WWJD. And I was told that this means, what would Jesus do? And going to a private Christian school, they obviously would go through the Bible. I've read the Bible 3 times. I know majority of it. I can't, I'm not someone that likes to quote scriptures for everything like my dad does. But, I know majority of it. But what I got from that is that this bracelet meant, what would Jesus do? To be able to help us be able to make the right decisions in life, right? And a lot of the different things that I got from what kind of person Jesus was is that Jesus was there to help heal people, help protect people, and help make this world a better place, right? One big thing that I focused in on, one story is that, there's this one story, I forget what part of the New Testament it's in, but there was a lady that had cheated on her husband, committed adultery, as they say in the Bible, right? And the whole community or town was going to stone her to death. And so Jesus rolls up and he's like, whoa, what's going on here? What's going on? And she's crying, help me, Jesus, help me, please help me, right? All these people are like, no, she's a sinner. Kill her, stone her, right? At least that's what we see in the movies. That's what we've been told. And Jesus steps in and he's like, whoa, hey, everyone, come on, let's be real here, all right? Yes, she's sinned. She cheated on her husband. She committed adultery. But, have y'all never messed up in life? Have y'all never made a mistake? Have y'all never sinned in life? Whoever is absolutely perfect out here, you can go ahead and throw the first stone. But everyone dropped the stones. because they knew that they were all a bunch of hypocrites. They've all fucked up and messed up in life, and no one's perfect. So they turned around and walked away. But Jesus turned around to that woman and was like, hey, look, give me a hug, all right? I love you. I know that you made a mistake. It's okay. Everyone makes mistakes in life. But the point that we want to get is we want to learn from these mistakes. All right, the mistakes, the challenges, all these different things in life are our biggest teachers. They're there to teach us something. But if we don't learn from these lessons, then we're going to continue to find ourselves in the same predicaments, right? But overall, as he stood up for that lady, when everyone else wanted to stone her, he stood up for that lady and brought truth to the situation. Okay, not only that, he would go to different cities and towns and stuff and ask the people what help they needed, right? He wasn't going to a church and hanging out and praying to, whatever. He wasn't in that. In fact, when he did go to these synagogues or these churches and stuff, he saw the way that they ran things and saw how corrupt and how wrong it was with what they were doing. And he flipped out in those places because it was so disrespectful. These people are cheating other people out by gambling in these holy places and doing all these different things, right? Because we're all sinners. We all make mistakes, but that is part of life. Because if we didn't make the mistakes, we would never know how to correct and what the good is, right? We have to have the bad in order to even know what good is. Because if we never had the bad, then what is good, right? So, during my childhood and everything, that's my background. I was getting shunned. I didn't understand why these people were treating me this way and not showing me any love or acceptance or any help or support with what I was going through, and not really having any happy place to go to besides inward and music. And that's what gave me a passion and love for music, because that's what helped me get through those times. And I wanted to play guitar because I wanted to be able to create my own music and expressions through what I was feeling with my own words and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I did, and I got into that. But then we get older, getting into high school and not really having, much of a structured life. I was at my own whim to do whatever I wanted, which I loved. I had the freedom to go surfing all the time, go hang out with my friends, go party, do all that stuff. But I didn't make the right decisions and choices. However, I realized I had to work through those. I had to make those mistakes in order to get to where I am now. All right, so that's pretty much my whole background and everything. Then moving forward, when I was about 23 years old, I needed to figure out something to do. So I reached out to my dad and I started working at Orange Theory. Now at this time, I also found out that I was about to have a kid too, my first son. So there was a lot now at stake that I needed to really get my shit together. And I dove into fitness because over my isolation point, I went out to my grandparents' house in the mountains. I went out to some family that I had in Arizona, spent time out there away from everyone because I didn't get into the military. I didn't get into the border patrol. So I had to self-isolate myself. And I just really tried to surround myself with people that could help mentor me in the right way to go, because I really had no clue on where to go in life at that point, right? So I wanted to surround myself with people that I trusted and that I knew loved me and would give me good advice and help me move forward, and support me in moving forward, right? So that's what I did. And then, I started working with my dad and doing that, and knowing that I had I had my first child on the way. I had a lot of motivation and fire under my ass to get my shit together. So I started working in health and fitness. I meant to say, through my isolation point, I really dove into taking care of myself, getting into a workout routine, starting to try to focus in on eating right and all this stuff. So I started diving into those. So that's where I got the idea of hey, I should really start going into this fitness and health stuff. I'm passionate about it. I enjoy it. It's helped me out a lot. So, I have an opportunity where I can get a job through my dad. And so let's go ahead and do that. If there's one way my dad could help me later on in my years, it's just give me a job, get me a foot in the door, and sure, I'll work my way up. So I did that. I started working my way up, started educating myself further. Then I ended up wanting to be a coach at Orange Theory. So, there were some different certifications and different education that I needed to get done in order to get to that position, or at least audition for that position. So I did that. It was very hard, and I'm not good at taking tests and not good at studying, as the last time I did that was when I was 18 years old in high school and stuff like that. Now I'm 23. It's, been 4 or 5 years later, but 4 or 5 years not, studying or taking tests or doing all that. It was a little scary, and it was not fun. But I had to do it in order to get to, the position that I wanted to. So through that, I focused on moving forward, educating myself to really start to dive into this as a career. The rest has been history, right? As some would say. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video there. And in the next one, we'll start diving into, we'll pick it up from where we left off. And from here on out, we'll be diving into more specific topics, but I wanted to be able to just introduce myself, give my background, give my journey, because that's going to give you all the context and understanding of what I talk about and where I got the information that I talk about and my coaching practices and all that kind of stuff. It just gives you a better understanding of who I am, right? So you understand where I'm coming from. But other than that, again, I appreciate each and every one of you tuning in, watching this video. If you enjoyed it, press that like button and follow for more awesome tips focusing in on your health through nourishment, through movement, and through mindset, and just, positive stuff. All right. Other than that, we'll see you next time. Bye.